Good evening and welcome to the City of Battle Creek, Michigan in the Battle Creek City Commission meeting for September 5th, 2023. It is 7 p.m. This evening, we're going to have a moment of silence for our invocation. And if you're able to stand, please join us. Then we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask our Vice Mayor to lead us in the pledge. So if you're able to stand for a moment of silence, please stand. Vice Mayor Sophia.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our meeting tonight. Next item on our agenda is our roll call. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Commissioner Ballard.
Present.
Commissioner Lance. Commissioner Morris. Here. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Here.
Mayor Banky.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Present.
Commissioner Simmons.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
And Vice Mayor Sophia. Here. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Commission for being here. And we're going to start next by presenting some proclamations and awards. The first one, I've asked the Vice Mayor to help because there are several South American cities or countries that I would struggle with. So, and then she's going to fill in on the 16th of September at a special gathering of the Latino organization in the Hispanic organization. So I want to start with that one. Then our second one will be a certificate of recognition to longtime Executive Director of AccessVision, Dale Germinder, who also served as a City Commissioner, I believe, for 6 years? 4 years. So we will make that presentation, and then Commissioner Reynolds and I will be making some comments and presenting what I consider a very useful endeavor in our community created by Dr. Michael Glass and some other volunteers that have spent a lot of their personal fortune obtaining diaper needs for mothers and families in our community. Started during the COVID pandemic, and it continues today. And so we want to recognize some of the key people there. So I would like to first invite Jesus up to receive our proclamation. Jesus, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the event on the 16th of September. Sherry will be there, and then we'll read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we invite the city of Battle Creek to be present in our celebration and fiesta kick-off for the Hispanic Heritage Month. They're going to start September 15 to October 15. Every year, America celebrate that month to recognize the contributions of the Latino community. We have been doing this for 8 years. I belong to the, besides the newspaper, Spanish newspaper in town, I belong to the coordinator of the Battle Creek Latin American Heritage Initiative. And we're gonna have a kick-off fiesta September 15, noon to 4 at the Friendship Park. We're going to have Colombian food, Mexican food, Guatemalan food, Brazilian, and Puerto Rico. We're going to have music, and everything is going to be free. It's a contribution from the Latino community to all of the community. The funds comes from many organizations, including Kellogg Foundation, Battle Creek Community Foundation, and other sponsorships, many organizations that contribute to this. So I invite everybody. It's a free for all of the community. So thank you for the proclamation.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 16th. The proclamation that we have for you today reads, whereas American citizens whose ancestors come from Spain, Mexico, and the Spanish-speaking nations of Central and South America and the Caribbean, including Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Puerto Rico, Uruguay, and Venezuela have played an important role in the development and progress of the United States of America. And whereas the Latino population in the city of Battle Creek has a growth rate of 58% between the years of 2000 and 2014 and has become instrumental in shaping our great city. And whereas Latino Americans have enriched our society in many ways and continue to make significant and lasting contributions to the city of Battle Creek. And whereas, to honor the achievement of Hispanic and Latino Americans and recognize their contributions to our nation, President Lyndon Johnson started Hispanic Heritage Week in 1968. President Ronald Reagan expanded that celebration in 1988 to encompass a 30-day period during which time Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Chile celebrate their Day of Independence. And on August 17, 1988, Congress passed Public Law 100-402, designating September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month. Now, therefore, we do hereby proclaim the period of September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in the greater Battle Creek area and urge citizens to increase their awareness of and celebrate the proud history, cultures, and contributions of these American citizens whose Hispanic and Latino ancestors, both past and present, have woven part of the tapestry that is our great city.
I'd like to ask Dale Germinder to come forward. Let's see where this goes. Dale has served as Executive Director of the AccessVision for 31 years, and he's been employed in that field of endeavor for over 43 years. So we are going to celebrate on the 20th of September his retirement at AccessVision. And we want to thank him for some of the hard work that he's put in to develop a product that the people of Battle Creek listen to, probably with more annual showings on our AccessVision City Commission meeting than any other show. But it's changed a lot through the years. But it's a good product that the people of Battle Creek have grown to really learn and like. And we just want to thank Dale and his wife for their dedication to the Battle Creek community and their hard work at keeping AccessVision going as a thriving small business in our downtown sector. And on behalf of the Battle Creek City Commission, Dale, we're going to say thank you. We're going to miss you, but you've worked hard, and please enjoy your retirement. Thank you, Rebecca. Our final one is an interesting fundraiser that Dr. Michael Glass and other individuals, please come forward, took on as a challenge during the COVID pandemic when things were slow and sometimes money was tight. And they have gone out to Sam's Club and Walmart and a lot of the stores, even Meijer, and asked for contributions with diapers for young children today. And they continue to do that even through the pandemic. I believe it's on every Wednesday morning. last Wednesday of every month. Thank you very much. But if you're ever in downtown Battle Creek near the Y Center, there's a traffic jam because there are so many people that come from all over the county to receive some of the things that they need, the essential ingredients in a family's operation. So we want to say thank you, and Commissioner Reynolds is going to read as much as she can.
Did you want to say something, Denise, for now? Okay, all righty. So now and therefore, I and Mayor Mark Binke, Mayor of the City of Battle Creek, Michigan, do hereby proclaim the week of September 18th through September 24th as National Diaper Need Awareness Week. In the City of Battle Creek, thank you for the diaper banks, their staff, volunteers, donors, for the service, and encourage the neighbors of the City of Battle Creek to donate generously to the diaper bank, diaper drives, and support the organizations that collect and distribute diapers to families struggling with diaper needs, so that all of Battle Creek children and families can strive and reach the full potential.
Hello, everyone. I am Denise Rucker, and I am the Executive Director of the Battle Creek Diaper Initiative. The Diaper Initiative started in 2016. Like the mayor said, Dr. Michael Glass just saw the need, and he decided to purchase diapers and wipes and just pass them out to anybody in the neighborhood that needed them. And it has grown, like he said, over the course of time during the pandemic. It was such a great need. We gave out over 1 million diapers at that time. So we did really, really good to help the families out. So we were really proud of ourselves. Yes. So with the help of our communities and organizations, we're able to help our families. We give out diapers once a month, the last Wednesday of each month, from 4 to 6 p.m. At 380 Truth Drive. North side of town, a housing complex over there. That's where Dr. Glass started. So we're comfortable with that neighborhood and the people, and they just love that we bring those resources to them. So, and we would like to continue to do that as long as we can. So with the help of the community and the organizations that we work with, I think we'll be able to be doing this for our community for a long time. So thank everybody for having us, and thank you for this proclamation.
Very good. Well, we're going to have a picture taken. Thank you very much, Mrs. Ricker. Thank you, everyone. Next item on our agenda is presentations. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Fleury, our city manager, who will make the introduction.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate that. This will be the first interim financial report from our new Revenue Services Director, Aaron Kuhn. I know you're used to seeing Linda up here, but I can guarantee you that Aaron is excited to bring you the financial statements and will answer any of your questions. So welcome, Aaron, for the first of, I'm sure, many interim financial statement reports to the Commission. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Rebecca, and Ted, for this opportunity to present and discuss with you the preliminary June 30th, 2023 year-end financial statements for selected funds. For the benefit of all of us, while there are multiple years of financial information going around, I want to point out that these statements presented to you are for what we call fiscal year 2023, and are for the year that began on July 1st of 22 and ended on June 30th of 2023. To keep things confusing, we are 2 months into fiscal year 2024. So for me and the finance department staff, we really have to concentrate on what fiscal year we're talking about. In the last little over 1 year, we've had 3 retirements, 4 new hires, and 3 individuals promoted just in the finance department alone. Several of our finance staff members are still learning their new jobs as we play musical chairs, and I'd like to call our entire finance staff for the hard work that they are doing to get things posted for this presentation in as timely a fashion as we were able. We continue to make adjustments and perform reconciliations in preparation for the auditors. These adjustments will continue for another 5 weeks or so until the arrival of the auditors, thus the continued use of the word preliminary. The auditors will grace us with their presence beginning in early October, and they will present final audited financial statements either in December or early January. This budget status report highlights the general fund, but also presents the major and local street funds, as well as the water and sewer funds. So starting off with the general fund, I'm happy to report that revenues over expenditures for the general fund show a positive or a net income of $347,138. This is a favorable difference from the $243,000 adjusted budgeted use of fund balance, so like a $600,000 swing to the good. The current adjusted budget includes the year-end approved general fund amendment that was approved by the City Commission in June. Excluding $2 million in unused ARPA lost revenue, revenues for the year are at 100.62% of budget and 4.3% over the prior year. Income tax revenue is just a shade under 2% higher than the prior year. It's certainly difficult to anticipate this revenue source, but I'm certainly relieved to be sharing that positive variance versus the alternative. The budget for constitutional state shared revenue was increased $632,000 with our year-end budget amendment. After our August payment was received, revenue is in line with what was projected. The current year actual numbers are based upon estimates from the Michigan Department of Treasury. Continued wage growth and stable consumer spending continue to help this revenue source remain steady. Recreation revenues for the year are a welcome surprise. Recreation charges for services were just a little over $311,000 over the adjusted budget, and 6% higher than the prior year. The golf course again exceeded expectations with revenues over budget by $253,000. Of the $2.5 million charges for services for recreation, nearly $1.5 million is from the golf course. The year-end budget included a transfer from the American Rescue Plan Act fund, or ARPA fund, for lost revenue in the amount of $2.5 million. Preliminary results show that as a budgeted revenue transfer from other, but we only used $500,000 out of the $2.5 million. Those unspent ARPA funds will be saved for a future need. Total general fund expenditures are at 96% of budget, but accounts payable for the June 30th, 2023 year-end still continue to be intermittently processed. Preliminary results show both police and fire department budgets came in under the adjusted budget for expenditures. On a good note, the city's interest and dividend income continues to trend in an upward direction along with rising interest rates. This led to a nearly $1 million swing in interest income in the general fund from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. The water and sewer funds recognized investment income of $203,000 and $320,000 respectively. Major and local street funds preliminary results are far better than budget, primarily due to expenditure savings, as well as a conservative revenue estimate in major streets. Sewer fund revenues have decreased 3.5% from the prior year, and revenues in the water fund have increased close to 6%. Expense budgets in both water and sewer include amounts for substantial capital projects that are not yet completed. This contributes to the sewer fund showing 75% of budgeted expenditures and water at just over 78%. Also contributing to the below expenditure budget in sewer is the debt service, which is at 85% of budget. This favorable position is attributed to qualified energy conservation bonds, which we receive an interest subsidy each year. Last year totaled almost $195,000. But in order to be conservative, the entire debt service is budgeted in case of anything changing at the federal level. And at that point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question and then one request. I'll start with the question first. Corporate income tax looks like it went down 32%, about $800,000. Do we have any idea what's happening there?
Not off the top of my head, but there's...
Okay, we're going to circle back.
Yeah, there's kind of some dramatic fluctuations in companies that, when they file in terms of making estimated payments and...
I was curious if it was a
Yeah,
seasonal thing or not, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably a timeliness sort of thing.
Okay, we'll keep my eye on it. And then a request. This might be a hard one to really get your hands around, but I'd like to know, to the extent possible, how much money we're leaving on the table in regard to property tax abatements. If we have a property that's worth X, but they're paying, Y, I'd like to know the difference somehow. And again, I don't expect this right now or anything, but.
So there was a recent GASB standard, GASB 77, which is in regard to tax abatements, and we have to disclose those on an annual basis. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd be happy to report back.
I appreciate that, and thank you very much for everything. This looks great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to keep in mind my sidewalks. We need money for the sidewalks.
Yes.
So keep it in mind, please. Thank you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Any other commission comments? Questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is petitions, communications, and reports. Madam Clerk?
There were none.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is Chair noting any added or deleted resolutions.
There were none.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing. When you're ready.
In accordance with Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, as amended, and the Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act of 1990, the City of Battle Creek is required to complete a performance report detailing the accomplishments of the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership, HOME, programs. This performance report is called the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or CAPER. This public hearing is to allow for public comment on the 2022-23 Draft Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, CAPER.
Declare the public hearing open. If you'd like to make a public comment on the subject of this public hearing, then please raise your hand and wait for us to acknowledge you and come forward to the podium where you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address before making the comment so that we may get back to you if we need to call you. Are there any public comments at this time? Are there any public comments? See none, declare the public hearing closed. Next item on our agenda is adoption of ordinance 222, ordinance 08-2023. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Recently, Commissioner O'Donnell, with the support of Commissioner Simmons and Mayor Banky, brought forth a request to amend the city's animal ordinance to include ducks and quail. Doing so would provide additional options for local constituents that are allergic to chicken eggs and recognize the cultural importance of quail to the city's Burmese community. Based on previous inquiries, the amendment would also include the keeping of bees. Before drafting the ordinance, staff researched the topic by locating trustworthy resources on the keeping of each type of livestock, finding other community ordinances allowing these types of livestock, and gathering community input. This proposed ordinance, number 08-2023, seeks to revise section 608.30 of city ordinances, urban livestock, to include bees, ducks, and quail.
Motion to adopt ordinance 222.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adopt ordinance 222, ordinance 08-2023. Are there any public comments at this time? David.
Well, again, once again, I'm not against the ordinance, but it's in a close neighborhood area. Only thing I check to. I'm not against this. I'm not against animals. I love animals. Don't get me wrong. People get me wrong saying I'm all against all this stuff. I'm not. Well, I'm concerned about in a close, congested area, and the houses are so close together. A comment I gave, was it 2 weeks ago? I gave a comment on it, and it's just not the place right in the city where it's so populated. Out in the country, I'm 100% for it. I think it's a great program. People want to come up and criticize me or whatever, I'll be happy to talk to them about it. I'm not against it. I agree with most everybody says. I agree. But I don't think it's not right in a close residential area. And another thing, these businesses have to have code inspection on this eggs and things like that. And the people, any privates don't have their animals have to be inspected, and eggs and whatever it is have to be inspected. And these homeowners that privately own it don't have that. Those are the things I'm concerned about. But so for this resolution, I'm sorry to make that a proposal against it, but this is not good for a close, tied-up area. Only thing I have against that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other public comments at this time? Yes, ma'am.
163 East Avenue North, Holly. I'll try this for the second time around. Maybe public speaking will get a little bit easier. But I just want to thank you all for your consideration and allowing the additional livestock bees for myself and for the Burmese culture, and just having other options. And I don't want to recap everything from a few weeks ago, but I didn't know if you guys had any further questions for myself on possible ducks or quail or anything that you guys had.
Unfortunately, it's a good idea to ask questions, but this is a business meeting, so we're taking comments about what we're about to vote on.
Okay.
But
Well, yeah, I'm in favor.
I can be overruled.
Yep. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, sir.
My name is Graham, also 163 East Ave North. As far as healthiness and the, I guess, the keeping of the animals, as this gentleman was concerned about, the eggs that are secreted from chickens, ducks, quail, geese, you name it, they come with their own enzymes on them, which protect them. You're allowed to keep them on your counter for up to a month. You don't even have to refrigerate them at that point in time. So as the store-bought eggs, nobody knows how long they've been held wherever they're being held. But I do guarantee that the quality of the eggs that you get at home are far, far better than what you're receiving at any store. The quality of the meat as well, it's passed from hand to hand to hand to hand, and then packaged, and then it's set somewhere, and then it's put in a freezer, and then from there on it's shipped to who knows where all over the nation. I have butchered my own birds. It's a process. It's not easy for anybody to do, but they're vacuum sealed and they go directly into my freezer. Everything is washed, our knives, everything is all clean. It's a much safer product than what you're going to receive from any store that you go to. I promise you that. As far as the bees ordinance goes, I'm definitely for it. I do understand that there's allergies to some people. You can walk anywhere outside. You can walk in this building. I'm sure with all the overhangs and eaves and things of that nature, you guys are constantly cleaning out wasps and hornets and things of that nature. With the downfall of the American honeybee population, I think it's a great thing. Let's face it, without pollinators, we wouldn't be here. So to allow something like this is a huge plus. It's not a cheap start. It's a super expensive thing to get into. Somebody's got to be really dedicated to do it, and for that, I commend them. I don't have that patience or that time, but for anybody who does, I'd hope that they would. Your gardens, your flowers, I've noticed out in Kalamazoo, they're planting flowers in the center section of the highways and things like that to increase the pollinators. So anything like that that will benefit any one of us, I commend. And that's as much as I've got on that, so.
Thank you for everything you just said. Thank you. Any other public comments at this time? Did I see a hand in the back? Yes. John Kennefick.
John Kennefick, 234 South Avenue. I was up here at the last commission meeting speaking in regards to the approval of this ordinance. And then I was called back to the microphone by the mayor saying, "Are you in favor of this?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in favor of this ordinance of ducks and quail. But I'm not in favor of government extortion. I would appreciate you amend this so that whatever the cost that you're going to be charging these people should be reduced, because it's their livelihood, it's their lives, that is what they put their time into, not the inspection division." One person stood up here after I had spoken and said, "There's got to be regulation. There's got to be regulation." This is where our rights start to disappear when you have regulations. Regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation. If they're not inflicting their will on anybody, all the more power to them. This is supposed to be the United States. The gentleman spoke just a moment ago in regards to shelf life of eggs at Department or Myers and such places like that. I can't tell you about Family Fare, but I certainly can tell you about Myers on out at Beckley Road. I used to work out there, and I used to work in that division. And my job was to deliver milk and all the things that were the longest date code, the one that had to be sold first, and made sure the customers got that immediately before the fresher date codes of things brought out, including eggs. And if they didn't make the date code time period, they had to be pulled and thrown away. Eggs that have a crack in them that you buy, and you look at the dozen eggs, it's got a crack in one of them, return to us, thrown in the garbage can, all of them, all 12. There is procedure, but also sometimes things slip through the cracks. So I wouldn't dispute the gentleman's concept of how eggs stay fresher, being quail and duck eggs. Sometimes too many things come in and things get overlooked, but not on my shift. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, would you please vote on the adoption of ordinance 08-2023?
Mr. Mayor, can we have some discussion on this?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Any discussion from the commission? Commissioner Simmons.
You know, I'm not going to rehash everything. We had a great discussion here a couple weeks ago when we introduced this, and we had several people here who spoke for and some against. And I commented extensively about ducks and the quail. You know, the bee thing kind of made me stop and think, I need to look into this a little bit more. And so in the last 3 weeks since we met, I've had an opportunity to look into urban bees and the practices of urban bees. And I've come across some amazing information in big cities, New York and Chicago and San Francisco, where they're raising these on top of buildings, apartment buildings and other business buildings. And these bees don't cause any harm to the densely packed residents in these cities. They come out of their hives, and many of them fly many miles, descend on city parks and little enclaves and neighborhoods with trees and plants, and do their job of pollination and then return. I've also learned that domesticated honeybees have been bred to be somewhat docile. Will they sting you if you go up and agitate their hive? Well, sure. They're going to do what they have in their nature and defend their hive. But the only thing I am concerned about here, and Mr. Moore mentioned about being close proximity, and maybe city staff can address this with the bees. Let's talk a little bit about, I know we have certain property line setbacks and certain enclosures that are required for chickens. Talk a little bit about the bees. What I wouldn't want to see, and I'm very supportive of this, by the way, but I want this to be addressed for our neighbors who might have these concerns. If a hive were to be accessed by a small child, didn't know what they were getting into, what are the city code regulations, and how would they prevent that, something like that?
I appreciate the question, Commissioner. I am actually going to defer to the planning team who did the research
Thank you.
on these items, so I will ask Darcy and or whomever else to come on up.
All very good questions here. Good evening. The bees would be required to be set back from any neighboring residential dwelling. They would be required to be set back from the property owner's residential dwelling. They would also be required to put within 15 feet of the opening of the beehive a structure, a solid structure. It could be fencing, it could be a screen that will allow the bees to go through, but to go through slowly to prevent the bees from swarming out all at once. What it does is it directs them up over the height of any human and sends them on their way to where they would go. And again, the property requirement of acreage also allows, some properties can have a lot of acreage but be long, so the setbacks from each of the property lines also helps to prevent closeness to a shed on the neighboring property. But the biggest indicator is the distance 40 feet from any residential property.
Okay, thank you for that description. And that was my understanding when I read the ordinance. And I just wanted to hear from city staff for the folks that might have concerns about that potentially causing harm to neighbors. And I have to share that people are already raising bees. I know some folks within the city, I'm not going to give any names, but who raise them. I attended a church group meeting at someone's home, and I'm looking at, I'm like, are those beehives? And we're sitting, maybe 30, 40 feet away. You're not being swarmed by bees. They, again, disperse out, they do their thing, and then they come back at night or spend the winter in there. And it's very harmonious with the environment. And as I think some of our citizens have mentioned, that it's good for our plants and good for our crops. So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the reminder. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So I had asked 3 weeks ago about properties and the maps that we got. They're lovely, but I think that somehow, some way, there was a disconnect because my property is like the mid-blue. There is no way that I could have any sort of a farm animal on my property, just given the setbacks and the requirements. And I talked to the city manager before the meeting about how, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I sure can. These are called GIS maps, and they take the data that we have entered into the system, and they can produce different maps. You can turn on layers, turn off layers, add in formulas. However, we do not have the ability to put in the requirements of the code, like setbacks and things like that. So in order to do that, I don't know if that can be done. In order to do that, it would take a lot more time than 3 weeks. So what we tried to do is take, like, generally the size of the properties. There's a lot of different things that were difficult to pinpoint. So what we did is we took the properties that would be allowed to have a single family or two family unit on them, and we used those with their size based on the requirements in the code. And that was about, to get you a good idea of where it was the best we could do in 3 weeks. We could spend a couple months, a few months, if we needed something that was something that we had to use to regulate. But it would take a lot more time because it takes the GIS person and the planning staff to work back and forth to, like, kind of weed out the anomalies. We have industrial and commercial properties within the single-family residential district, so we would have to go through and do a formula, weed those out. We have properties that are vacant that can't be used for these different bees, quail, and they have to have an owner occupied or a renter, someone who's signing off on a renter doing it. We would have to go through and do a formula to take those out. And typically, until you see the map and go through and do kind of a spot, it's difficult to narrow all of those down with a short amount of time. With more time, you can do that. But adding in the setbacks and the requirements of the code, I don't know if GIS could actually do that. And if they could, I know it would take time because all the data that we used for these maps was already input. So does that help a little bit?
It does. I would just say that I'm very disappointed. And I'm not a tech person. It seems to me like this should be a no-brainer. I can go to the city's website, call up my property, I see where my house is, I see where all of the buildings are on my property, I see my property lines, so it's somewhere.
Right.
It just seems like it shouldn't be that difficult. That's number one. Number two, you have Bailey Park as whatever the most vivid blue, the largest. You've got Bailey Park, you've got Irving Park, and we know that those are not residential.
Right.
And
they are residential, but they're not residences, correct?
And that there is no way, I mean, well, we do have a nice flock of ducks at Irving Park, but there are too many. If I read the ordinance correctly, there are already too many ducks in the park. So we would be violating our own ordinance if we were allowed to have ducks there, which we're not. What is the process for denial or revocation? There's a reference in the ordinance that says that, if they're not being taken care of, or, whatever the case may be, that there's a process. What is that process? So if my neighbor isn't taking care of their...
Basically, they would be given the opportunity to correct whatever they're doing.
But how does a resident, does a resident, who does a resident call to say there's a problem?
They would call our code department.
They call
They
code,
could call
okay.
any of us in the community service department, and we can direct you to the right
Okay.
person. And the code department will actually send someone out. They will investigate. They will give the property owner or renter the opportunity to correct the situation. They will go out and evaluate, and if they have met all the requirements, then they will be able to continue. If not, we would start the process of revoking their license.
Okay. Who is going to take responsibility for the animals that get dropped? And again, I go back to Irving Park because when I go out for my walk in the morning, I walk by that flock of ducks. Are we going to partner with some outside organization to deal with our mess, or are we going to hire more animal control officers, or how are we going to handle these farm animals that now become our problem to handle and deal with?
Let me take a little stab at that one. So in Irving Park, we've actually seen some help from some of our animal rescue organizations. Ask has certainly done some, I don't know if I call it outreach, but have gone into Irving Park to try to rehome ducks that are there. But as you say, the population continues to grow because a lot of times they nest and come back to the same location. So up until this point, we have used rescue organizations to help with that.
So we partner?
We do.
Okay.
We have. But of course, animal control could also be involved if we got to a more serious situation or a more intense population.
Okay.
But I will tell you, we would struggle housing any sort of ducks or geese that we would take from Irving Park. The shelter just doesn't have that space.
And then, so I made a few phone calls this afternoon just to find out like what local vets there were. The only local, well, Kalamazoo was the closest local vet that I found. There was one that it was suggested may take birds, but I wasn't able to reach them. And the Kalamazoo vet is, their response was, if you're an established customer, we might be willing to talk to you, but we don't have, we're not taking any new patients at this time. So how are we making sure that there's the ability to get adequate care for
That's a good question. As you know, MSU has a great program, and it's not local, but it is an hour away. And most people, if they have issues like that, will use them for not just ducks, all kinds of animals. And that's a pretty common practice.
Okay, I just, you know, we've
It's a
got
good
colony
question,
collapse,
yes.
we've got avian flu, whether
Right.
it's chickens or ducks. I'm not sure if ducks are susceptible, but.
Right.
I guess, I've said this before, I grew up on a farm. I had chickens and rabbits and cows and pigs and horses and dogs and cats. So I'm not unsympathetic to the desire to grow your own food and to be able to have eggs. I believe we are not allowing butchering on site. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So you can't butcher on site. But these animals are, I mean, they're a responsibility. And I didn't eat until all of my chores were done. And in the winter, it is not fun going out there, making sure that they have water. It doesn't matter if it's 10 below, you still need to go out and take care of your animals. And I have some concerns and will continue to vote no. But thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. I just wanted to explain my vote. Personally, we have a natural bee garden that bees like Michigan native plants. So we plant the plants, the bees come. We've had it for 5 years. We've never had an issue with being stung or a massive amount, but we see a number of bees that come. I wanted to explain my vote because I've talked with many people as constituents, and 95% of the people I spoke to are in favor of it. So I'm voting for my constituents that that's what they want. And I think both Chris and Sophia, commissioners and vice mayor, you both bring up good points, and I just wanted to say that's why I'm voting yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Patrick O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. We all remember when we were stung by a bee, but it may have been a wasp, hornet, something like that. It probably was not a honeybee. They're very docile. And then we sit around and we see movies like Sharknado or Swarm, where the bees come after you and kind of scare us. Those aren't honeybees. It's kind of, they've been put in a negative light. The honeybee is something that's what you need in human life. And Einstein said it about if the honeybees go, then so does the agriculture. But so there's that fear that we've had when we were young, and we kind of, some of us manifested, and we get older and get scared. But I did some research also, and Michigan State, which you talked about earlier, great veterinarian school. Also, we just talked about it for ducks. I've had to have some healthcare work stuff for my son a few years ago. Couldn't find anything here in town that would come close to taking care of his shoulder. Had to go to Detroit, where the medical, I'd have to say, is a little better over there with the University of Michigan. And it's the same thing with the livestock that we're adding. If you really want the best, talk to them up there at Michigan State. I know somebody that actually works up there. And it's a little sidebar. My dog wasn't feeling good, and they said, give him pumpkin. I was like, what? And sure enough, it helped the dog. I never would have thought of that. So that's like the kind of just different research and different information we get from the Michigan State University and other universities doing that type of study. But back to Michigan State, they talk about raising bees and talk about the 6-foot enclosure to prevent people from getting stung or coming up and swarming on the nest, things like that. But also, which I thought was quite interesting, food growth. You can have a permit. It's not a lot, but you can have, like, for your home use, you can raise up to make $15,000 a year in Michigan raising honey. And you don't have to have a food permit establishment. You just need to have pay the one fee for that. But if you go over $15,000, you're going to have to get a proper food permits and things like that to ship out. But think of the small income at the people at their homes that they could do if they want to raise the honeybees. And yes, it's very expensive to start that. But there's an opportunity there for self-sufficiency that we were talking about earlier. And they have some other great information there at Michigan State. But then I looked at Washtenaw County, and they have numerous ordinances about making sure it's consent with the neighbors, how to raise the bees, how far they can fly. Washtenaw County does it. And then I found something quite interesting. There's this group here, we got a bee highway, and they're called Bees in the D. So they're raising bees in Detroit, and they're trying to do so much up there. And they started with 6 hives in 2016, and now they're up to 200 hives today. So, got great groups like that. They maintain a beekeeping with the University of Detroit, Martin Luther King High School, teach school children about honeybees. So it's maybe somebody here wants to take on that mantle and move it forward. And then I looked up some more stuff about the bees, and there's a whole list of clubs. And what surprised me was Battle Creek Bee Club. So we actually have a local bee club. I was hoping that maybe one of them would show up tonight. Grand Rapids has bee clubs, Escanaba, so even up north they got bees everywhere. So I'm in favor for the bees. It seems very interesting that we come into a new kind of way of allowing citizens to be self-sufficient and also learn about nature. For the ducks and quails, I don't want to go over too much of that we have the last meeting, but I'm in definite favor of that. And make sure that you get when you get your ducks that you have purchased, because you can't do wildlife. You can't run down to Irving Park and grab your birds. It has to be purchased. So please be aware of that, everybody, and make sure you have enough space. And the last thing that we're all concerned about is making sure that we're in compliant, and that's one of the reasons that we have to have some fees in that. We need to make sure that people are compliant and taking care of the animals to the best of their ability, feeding them, watering, taking care of them. And that's what government's about, is making sure that even we can protect the animals that we do love. We have dogs and cats at home, and we do have rules on that and licensing, and not everybody follows them. But most of us try, because we're good people with our animals, and we respect them. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Your Honor,
Commissioner.
Your Honor, if I may, Commissioner O'Donnell asked me right before the meeting started about state licensure for for quails. So I wasn't able to do much research on that. I'm not really sure that they fit within the definition of kept game, but I could suggest an amendment that would not require a reintroduction because it's not imposing any new requirement. It would just be allowing the city to, if there were a requirement to have them permitted or licensed by the state, and then if they weren't, to be able to cite them and take some action. So this is just in trying to respond to Commissioner O'Donnell. You could do an amendment, motion to amend 608.30 small c 3, which is where it says quail may be kept, and then it's got circumstances, to add a D, a capital D. Any and all appropriate state and federal permits and/or licenses that may be required are obtained and currently maintained. That's just an option of response to your.
Yes, what I asked earlier is that the state of Michigan does not consider quail as livestock, and this was a livestock amendment. So I just wanted to make sure that we were following the state of Michigan's. And
like I said, you asked me right before the meeting, I really didn't have any
Yes,
time to thoroughly, but if you have a concern, that would cover it, and it would not require to reintroduce.
So it would make it so we can take care of it this evening?
If there is a requirement
Okay.
that they be licensed or permitted, or if there's one added to state law in the future, then, that's something that we could look into and say, okay, you violated the ordinance if they're required to and don't. So I'm just trying to respond to your question that you raised to me, that's a suggestion as to an amendment that could be offered.
I would like to introduce a amendment to that, so we can have discussion on that. Is that how that, and then I need a second, though, of course. Support.
Yeah, you would say I'd motion to amend it as the city attorney stated, 608.30 small c 3, add a D, any and all appropriate state and federal permits and/or licenses that may be required are obtained and currently maintained. And then another commissioner could second if they would agree with that.
So say I move.
Second.
So during my research, when I was looking up for quail, it was in the state of Michigan that certain game birds would be considered, and they don't consider game birds as livestock. There's two different terms for legal, like livestock would be cattle, ducks, chickens, that type of thing. I was just concerned that, and thank you for doing the research on that. So that's why I was asking about that, and apparently we should amend this just so that make sure that the quail is taken care of this evening. If there is any additional.
Are you moving to amend this as recommended by the city attorney?
Yes, that's what
I support.
Okay, now we have the amendment.
Oh, I thought we said, I thought he told me there wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry.
Then we have to have a vote on it.
Okay.
Now we're going to have a discussion on the amendment, or is there any discussion? All right, then we're going to vote on the motion to amend. The motion to amend has been approved. Now we're back on to the final discussion on ordinance 08-2023. Is there any further city commission discussion? Seeing none, would you please vote on the ordinance 08-2023?
So who is motioning and supporting?
The amendment was moved by Commissioner O'Donnell and then supported by Commissioner Simmons. The original resolution, or ordinance 08-2023, was moved by Morris and supported by O'Donnell.
That's fine. Thank you.
Resolution seeking to adopt ordinance 08-2023 has been approved. Next item on our agenda, when you're ready, Madam Clerk, is 09-2023 resolution.
Chapter 282 of City Ordinances was adopted at the June 26, 1990 City Commission meeting by Resolution 155. It has an unusual history. No members have been appointed to this board since 1995, thus it has remained dormant for more than 25 years. In addition, a reorganization by the city manager has also made the repeal of this chapter, which established the most recent iteration of this board appropriate. The former title of Parks and Recreation Director was changed to Recreation Director. The duties related to city parks was reassigned to the Field Services Division of the Public Works Department. Thus, the chapter establishing the board is obsolete and appropriate for repeal. This proposed ordinance number 09-2023 seeks to repeal Chapter 282 of City Ordinances, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, as it has become obsolete.
I move for the adoption of ordinance 09-2023.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution Ordinance 09-2023. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is there any commission comment? Seeing none, would you please vote on 09-2023? Ordinance 09-2023 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is public comment regarding consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda. If you'd like to make public comment regarding the consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you to come forward to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments. Please state your name and address before making your comments so that we may get back to you. Are there any public comments at this time? Are there any public comments? Seeing no, John Kennefic, please.
John Kennefic, 234 South Avenue. I have 3 minutes to go through 5 resolutions, beginning with Resolution 232. It says the City of Battle Creek, or excuse me, application from the Battle Creek Unlimited to the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunities Michigan Community Center Grant Program. It has to do with a food hub at the Kendall Center. No information in regards to the cost of the grant, not in the material. Resolution 233. Again, Battle Creek Unlimited is to get $58,333.34. What's its purpose? To develop a housing plan for Battle Creek. I thought they were the industrial end of this, the economic end. What are they doing in housing? Resolution 234, the tough one. This has to do with the tax fee bond schedule, or what I call the tax bond schedule. Boy, is it a lot of gobbledygook. It has a lot of stuff in here, but it doesn't show any information whatsoever of comparisons. We have listings here that was done, I show this, 10 years ago, and even that's really hard to follow to see what's changed between this and all of what's coming. Now, I did a count on the pages of things that were done in red. It shows no cost comparisons of what it was, but what it's going to be. It says it has to do with R2 and R3 residential. Residential fees. A re-roof, $100. Residential demo without basement. Citizens of Battle Creek. Police, fire, streets, sewer, water. Those are the 5 essential services. Resolution 235, $103,616 for chlorinator for the aquatic amusement park at full blast. Is that a priority? How much money has that made over the last 20 years or lost? How much money have you done in repairs? Who can tell? Last but not least, Resolution 242. This is to take a grant from FEMA and of $85,490.47 with a cost from the City of Battle Creek of $4,274.53, total $89,765. The purpose of this, of course, is to purchase fire alarm systems for the citizens of Battle Creek and extensive alarm systems for people that are hard of hearing. Sounds great. At the beginning of this meeting, the national debt was $32 trillion. Every taxpaying citizen owed $254,178. Thank you.
Your time is up.
I know.
Is there any other public comment at this time? Seeing no further, yes, Chuck Asher.
Chuck Asher, 961 Glencroft Lane. I'll talk about Resolution 242. Excuse me. I was working for the fire department when we went through this the first time. We purchased, I think, 50,000 smoke detectors with a grant in probably about 1995. We installed them in as many homes in Battle Creek as we could, and it was one of the most beneficial things we ever did as a fire department. So I'm in favor of 242. I read the background material, excuse me, background material, and I think you have a good, sensible plan to get them installed, unlike before when we walked the streets and knocked doors. But so I'm in favor of 242.
Thank you, Chuck, for your comments. Any other public comments at this time? Seeing none, any commission comments?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the consent agenda. I believe that was the motion, right? Is there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on the consent agenda? The consent agenda has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 234. Madam Clerk, when you're ready, Resolution 234.
On August 15, 2023, the City Commission approved Resolution Number 218, adopting the standard valuation model for Inspections Division building permit fee structure. The approval requires an amendment of the fee bond and insurance schedule to reflect the changes in fees. This resolution seeks an amendment of the 2023-2024 fee bond and insurance schedule for the City of Battle Creek.
I move to approve Resolution 234.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 234. Are there any comments from the commission? Seeing none, please vote on Resolution 234. Resolution 234 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 235.
A solicitation was issued April 14, 2023 for the Flash Flood Water Park Swimming Pool Chlorination System project. This project consists of removing and replacing the swimming pool chlorinator system at Flash Flood Water Park with a new system. Flash Flood Water Park Pool is approximately 200,000 gallons and services 22,000 visitors per season. This large pool requires specialized government or commercial grade equipment to keep operational. The current chlorinator system for the pool is beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced. This resolution seeks acceptance of the proposal of best value for Flash Flood Water Park Swimming Pool Chlorinator System from Aquatic Source LLC in a not to exceed amount of $103,616.
I move to approve Resolution 235.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 235. Are there any comments by the commission on this question? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to point out that, I tend to agree with some of the comments made earlier regarding the city owning a water park, but I don't think it's to anybody's benefit that we let it become dilapidated in the lease. So I do support this measure to keep it up, but I do feel a number of people are skeptical as to why our fingers are in so many things around town. So with that, I'll leave you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I'm supportive of this amendment. I know that we talked about the cost of this, but if we've looked at the pool situation in the city, we're pool deprived. We used to be pool heavy. Pools were donated by W.K. Kellogg to put in every one of the schools, if anybody knows the history of that. A lot of them are closed. I can barely find a place for me to go swim. I go to the Y Center to swim. But yes, we need to keep this up so we can have at least some area where people that can't go to the Y Center all the time can afford to go down and have some pool. So I'm fully supportive of this measure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 235? Resolution 235 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 236. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Special use permit S11-2022 was granted on September 20, 2022 to allow for a child care center for up to 50 children within a development proposal for the property at 200 Capitol Avenue Southwest. The property owner desires to move forward with a mixed-use housing development that would include commercial uses, low-income housing, and market-rate housing. To complement the housing development of the property owner, would also like to provide a child care center to accommodate the occupants of the proposed housing and the surrounding neighborhoods. This resolution seeks approval of a 6-month extension of a special use permit to allow a child care center for up to 50 children at 200 Capitol Avenue Southwest in a T4 downtown commercial district pursuant to Section 1281.05, Section A, Section 5 of the zoning code.
I move to approve Resolution 236.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 236. And just so you know, this is the former Kmart site. And BCU acquired the property through a donation, and they in turn are marketing it for public housing. And that's workforce and affordable housing. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 236? Resolution 236 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 237.
On November 8, 2022, Michigan voters approved Proposal 22-2, a proposal to amend the state constitution to add provisions regarding elections. Proposal 22-2 in part entitles voter the right, once registered, to vote in each statewide and federal election in person at an early voting site prior to Election Day. An early voting site must be open for at least 9 consecutive days of early voting, beginning on the second Saturday prior to a statewide or federal election and ending on the Sunday prior to the statewide or federal election. An early voting site must also be open a minimum of 8 hours each day during the consecutive 9 days of early voting. For the municipal agreement, those hours will be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. All electors in line by 4 p.m. at an early voting site each day will be allowed to cast their ballot. Early voting dates and times will be posted no less than 45 days prior to each statewide and federal election. This resolution seeks approval of an early voting site located at the Cool Family Community Center, 200 West Michigan Avenue, Battle Creek, Michigan.
I move to approve Resolution 237.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 237. Are there any comments by the commission?
Here.
Commissioner Simmons and Commissioner Ballard and Commissioner O'Donnell.
So I'll direct the question, I guess, to the city manager, and I'm assuming you're going to turn it over to the city clerk. You can just go right straight to the source. Is this the only site we're looking at for the entire city, or are we looking at any other sites, maybe on the south side as well?
Nope, this is the only site. We have to ensure that we have staffing available for all 9 days, and it is difficult to do that. We struggle to provide staffing for all 21 of our precincts.
Yeah.
But then to add 9 days of early voting becomes more of a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Ballard and Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Will this include other municipalities?
Yes. So we are, the state law allows a municipality to enter into either a municipal agreement, a countywide agreement, or just do it as a singular municipality. We've chosen to do a municipal agreement with the city of Springfield, the Charter Township of Bedford, and Penfield Charter Township.
Thank you.
So it's all of our surrounding municipalities.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
I'm glad you found a location. I know how difficult it was with all the code compliance, ADA rules, early voting rules. It's going to be a lot different. I've worked many elections, and this one here, as I look at what's taking place, 9 days of early voting, then on the 10th day, we're going to have a regular general election and 21 precincts. So I hope that anybody that really wants to have a interesting, and it's not boring, it's very giving back to the community, as people would say, job, but, and get a few dollars. College students, I'm looking at you all. If you want to, take a day off of whatever you're doing and just make a few dollars, at least on those 9 days, contact the office, but definitely on the 21st day. We're going to need a lot of citizens out there to work, especially this election because of all the different changes. So thank you for your time.
Any other commission comments? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 237? Resolution 237 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 238. Madam Clerk.
Michigan Municipal Employees Retirement System, MERS, hosts a conference annually for municipalities to participate. The city has historically sent an officer and employee delegate to this meeting. This resolution seeks appointment of the Assistant Revenue Services Director Amanda Wooden as officer delegate and Yolanda Johnson as employee delegate to attend the annual meeting of MERS to be held September 28th and 29th, 2023 in Detroit, Michigan.
I move to approve Resolution 238.
Support?
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 238. Any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on 238? Resolution 238 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 239.
The city maintains throughout the city a number of storm ponds located upon city-owned property. The city also manages and maintains storm ponds located upon privately owned property. Maintenance of the storm ponds includes mowing the flat surface around the storm ponds and the trimming and removal of other vegetation upon the property. The city will retain responsibility for maintenance of areas outside the perimeter fence. However, maintenance includes keeping the pond slopes and fencing clear of vegetation, which is difficult to maintain with machinery. Thus, keeping the pond slopes and perimeter fences clear of vegetation is labor-intensive. Using sheep to graze the storm pond locations is a sound environmental practice that reduces use of gas and oil and carbon emissions. This resolution seeks authorization for the city manager to execute a grazing agreement with Power Grazers LLC for sheep grazing of city storm basins.
I move to approve Resolution 239.
Support?
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 239. Are there any comments by the commission?
I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Ballard and then Commissioner Down.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question in regards to sheep versus cattle, because out west, they have an issue, I believe, between sheep kind of like clearing the land and leaving nothing for cattle. Is that our goal?
Actually, yes. I mean, the sheep will clear everything, because we've had a discussion about sheep versus goats.
Yeah.
We probably do not want to go into that, but sheep do a better job of clearing more of the banks than goats.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, just talking about more animal stuff tonight, so we all enjoy our animals. Sheep can eat poison ivy. We don't want to touch that. So I'm all for this because it's saving an insurance claim somewhere that someone could get poison ivy cleaning up and mowing the vegetation off these areas so they're clean and safe. So that's just one positive reason for this. So thank you. I'm all for it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments? Seeing none, would you please vote on 239?
Some giraffes to do this.
There you go. Power grazers, the trees, get the. Let's give this a refresh.
Resolution 239 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 240. Madam Clerk?
The Calhoun County Mental Health Authority, DBA Summit Point, acquired ownership of 155 Garfield Avenue on April 18, 2023. During the transfer of ownership process, Summit Point discovered that the driveway which serves 155 Garfield Avenue is located upon the adjacent city-owned parcel at 160 Brook Street. The proposed easement is along a portion of the eastern border of the city's parcel for a driveway for ingress and egress to Summit Point property. The easement itself is a total of 27.5 feet in width and 168 feet in length. This resolution seeks authorization for the city manager to enter into an easement agreement with the Calhoun County Mental Health Authority, DBA Summit Point, for access over a portion of the city-owned parcel at 160 Brook Street.
I move to approve Resolution 240.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 240. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on 240?
Mayor Banky?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Resolution 240 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 241.
Resolution number 81, dated February 21, 2023, approved contract number 2023-042B with Gutsu Construction LLC in a not-to-exceed amount of $663,255.56 for Lakeview Storage Building Project. That work consists of renovation of a 75-foot by 57-foot pole construction storage building. Improvements will include removal of interior walls, bathroom, heating elements, overhead and man doors, new ADA bathrooms, fans, heating units, epoxy floor treatment, overhead door, man doors, metal siding, and roofing. South building expansion site work grading, drainage, and paving. After starting this project and digging began at the site, it was discovered that most all of the existing columns were rotted and needed to be replaced. This was a structural emergency, so our engineering division, after seeking input from our inspections division, instructed the contractor to proceed with the work to correct the vulnerable state of the building. This resolution seeks authorization for a change order to contract number 2023-042B for Lakeview Storage Building and payment of invoice for work completed in a not-to-exceed amount of $142,865.75.
I move to approve Resolution 241.
Support.
So moved and supported to approve Resolution 241. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on 241, Resolution 241?
It's not showing up.
Commissioner Morris?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 241 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 242. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
The Battle Creek Fire Department has been awarded a Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Fire Protection and Safety FP&S grant for the purpose of providing smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms for the City of Battle Creek residents, as well as alarm notification devices for the deaf and hard of hearing neighbors of the Battle Creek community. This grant includes purchase of the devices and multilingual program information printing cost. During the 2-year grant period, the Battle Creek Fire Department will work with various community groups and the neighborhood planning councils to conduct installation canvassing campaigns for the alarms and devices. This resolution seeks authorization for the city manager to accept FEMA grant EMW-2022-FP-00567 Fire Prevention and Safety Grant in the amount of $85,490.47.
I move to approve Resolution 242.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 242. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns by the commission? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm so glad that they're getting this program out to help our citizens. I am for people to survive the silent killer of carbon monoxide. That is one thing, actually, in my life that scares me, because you just don't know. There's people with running a generator just recently because of the power outage. A young couple passed away. Anything we can do to stop the silent killer, I am all for, and thank you, Fire Department, for coming up with that grant exception. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments? Seeing none, would you please vote on 242, Resolution 242? Resolution 242 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is general public comment. If you'd like to make general public comment regarding matters over which the City Commission has control, please raise your hand and wait for us to acknowledge you, and then come forward to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address prior to beginning your comment. Are there any? I'm going to call in Deed Warden first, and then Greg Moore. David Moore, excuse me.
Hello, everyone. You may remember I was here several weeks ago to talk about my safety concerns and the concerns of my neighbors for Riverside Park, especially in response to the unfortunate and sad murder that happened in that location. I'm here to say thank you for listening. It was good to know that the commission listens to the general public. I really appreciate that. And just as importantly, beyond listening, I'm here to thank you for the action that has been taken to help secure the park with 2 additional steps made. I see Chief Bagley is here. I had a conversation with him, and he has pledged to alert his officers to do additional patrols or be aware on the nightly patrols, potentially pull in the park, make sure no one is there that shouldn't be there, and to act on ticketing or any other need that would have to happen if someone is there past the appropriate hours. I also want to thank whoever's responsible for, I don't know if it's Commissioner Simmons or who, but a sign has been erected at the entrance of the park, so it's no longer hard to find out what the hours are. So I'm glad that that's in place. What hasn't happened, and I hope will still happen, is the only section of the playground not being mowed that is now 2 to 3 feet tall. It still obstructs the vision of police officers or general public as you come down the street there. And so should there be an emergency and say an officer was going down the street, he or she may not pull in there and may not be aware at that time, but if they were able to see potentially what could be happening, that gives them an advantage. And I think that's just common sense. So I'm hoping that can happen. I know it's the city's responsibility to cut that grass. I know the city has made the decision not to cut the grass, and I'm hoping that can change. And it's also going to make the playground look a whole lot better. The only other concern I have, it does obstruct some vision, but if you notice the hill on the street, it's totally overgrown, and it's a complete mess with trees and vegetation growing up through the wires. It's a threat to the electrical service in the neighborhood. And the only reason it's that high is there's been neglect by the city services not to keep that cut. And traditionally it was done, just with the regular labor of the department in charge of that. So I'm hoping that can be addressed because that is continuing to grow in a much worse of a problem. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean, for being here and making your comments. David Moore, please.
I've got two things to say, and I want to say thank you, Chris, for those dozen eggs. This homegrown eggs, he gave me a carton of them. Thank you so very much. And on this postal 139, I'm a little confused about sheep for grass for cutting. I pay $60 every week or two to get my lawn mowed. Would it be cheaper for me to get some goats and have them eat my grass down? Would that be cheaper? Well, that's a little fun. All I got to say for tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Counselor?
Mr. Mayor and City Commission members, I want to thank you on behalf of Summit Point for approving the easement agreement. That building had sat empty for a number of years. It was previously owned by Star Commonwealth, and we are refurbishing it. And again, with the easement agreement, we thought we probably had some sort of easement. We like to have it legal. So we appreciate the city very much doing that. I also want to update that the pharmacy project with Grace Help is actually, we're going to break ground tomorrow on that. So again, thank you for your support of that. We had to make some changes to the site plan and we moved very quickly through the city administrative process, so we appreciate that. And wearing another hat on behalf of MEDA, we are getting ready to enter into an agreement with our construction manager at risk, which is the person that's going to, or the firm that's going to manage the water and sewer work. So this is the water connection with the city of Battle Creek. So MEDA has retained your engineer to help us design this, along with Emmett's engineer and the city marshals engineer. So when that's done very quickly, we will turn that over to the city, and that will be an unprecedented cooperative effort between the city of Battle Creek and the city of Marshall to provide water to both the Louisville Battery Park and obviously the other things that hopefully will be built in that over time. So thank you for your support of that project. It's very much appreciated.
And thank you, Attorney Lindsay, for sitting so patiently during our meeting. A little levity. Is there any other public comment tonight? Yes, Jerry Steiner, please.
Well. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Steiner. I live 115 South 26th Street. Excuse me, ladies. I could speak on reparations. I could speak on affirmative action. I could have a lot of topics, but the topic that really brought me here tonight after I sat down was, what was it? Resolution 235, the swimming thing. Let me see if I can take some of you. No, ain't too many people in here from my generation, but let me tell you, swimming was big when I came up. They had it at the youth building, and it was from Monday to Friday from 6 o'clock until 7 o'clock. I lived between Michigan Avenue and Jackson on South Wood Street. And I would never leave for swimming until 5 minutes to 6. Now you had to be there at 6 o'clock now, or you couldn't get in. Maybe twice I didn't get in. One time the police stopped me because I didn't have on my jersey. Back then days, black man running through the neighborhood, you took your own chances. But it happened to be some officers that knew me and knew what I was about. Now, y'all know I've come before you on numerous occasions. Roe versus Wade. I still say, ain't a man in here gonna stand up and say that woman don't run the rule. It's illogical. It's illogical for us to say that because when we realize that the woman is the cradle, she makes sure that humanity continues. But we men, we think all we got to do is control the woman and we control the world. and we will never, ever, 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 ever control the woman. I don't care what kind of laws we make, what kind of amendments we stamp out, what kind of protests we try to make the woman think that she's second rate. She's not. And Lord have mercy, I still got 38 seconds. And I know y'all gonna cut me off. You know? But in the interim, I want to tell all y'all, and I tell you every time, don't cost me nothing, y'all, to tell you that I care about you. Because I'm gonna need some of y'all down the line if I can't make it, just like y'all gonna need me. So I'm gonna leave you like I always do. Peace. And I got 8 seconds. Y'all can have it.
Thank you, Jerry Steiner. Any other public comments at this time? Yes, Bobby Holly.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners, I'm here tonight, Bobby Holly, 160 Wabascon Road. I'm here to address gun violence in our city. Gun violence has taken the lives of many young people in our community. A lot of senseless murders were planned by the perpetrator. But someone in that circle knows in advance who is going to be the next victim. We live in a very violent society, and acts of violence will never end unless we make it in. Our family is that has happened to. And it's today about 32 years the perpetrators who did that to my cousin, my nephew, haven't been caught yet. So I'm going back in the streets to help put an end to these senseless killings by the reckless use of handguns in this city, in other cities like Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Lansing. But this time I'm going out in a different way. I'm going out in the community dressed in a red outfit, which stands for blood that's been shed by the victims. Also a black mask, which stands for peace and justice. I will be pulling a casket which stands for death, and a megaphone to reach out vocally to the people. While wearing this outfit, I will be known as the Peace Man, bringing peace to the community. Now, kids will pick up on this in the coming weeks as we fight against gun violence, because they're always on those Facebooks and things like that, and they pick up faster than adults. I will obey all the laws and regulations that's on the books, and the law enforcement officials will also know ahead what I'm doing when the calls start coming in or the fast Facebook pictures start coming up there. But just remember that the Peace Man is out to bring awareness to help stop the killings in our community. So I just want to bring everyone on board as to what I'm doing as you see me out there in the streets, days and sometimes in the evening, that you know what I'm doing. The law enforcement, they also will know what I'm doing. And I would report to them, especially a lot of times in locations that I'm at for safety reasons. But I will be out there again, but out there much heavier, because we have more and more and more gun violence killings directed towards our young. So we're going to help take care of that, but we need everybody's help to be on board. God bless you, and thank you so much.
And God bless you, Bobby, and this entire commission supports your efforts. We applaud you, and we'll be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments at this time? Yes, John?
John Kennefic, 234 South Avenue. I appreciate Mr. O'Donnell giving me my opening here, because I also know a little about history of the city of Battle Creek, even though I was not born and raised here. Kellogg's, W.K. Kellogg's, was a very wealthy man. so he could afford to put swimming pools in many locations. But he also did something else. He built the youth building. And he was an intelligent man compared to a lot of other people who don't know anything about finances. He built the youth building and put what's called an endowment. That was money set aside in a bank account. And then in that bank account was interest generated. And that interest generated was maintaining the youth building. Again, he was also a very sharp man. He wasn't a something-for-nothing person. So if you came to the youth building, it might cost you a nickel. Now that might be a lot of money, but affordable to low-income people. It wasn't too long before the government of Battle Creek became the proprietor of that building. The endowment disappeared. There was no repairs. Back then, it was told to me by a person that was trying to save that building along with other people that there was a hole in the roof. And it was allowed to go on and get worse and worse where you could drive a truck through it. And that was all under the guise of the government of Battle Creek and the city commission at that time. In 1999, the city commission met for a resolution for the demolition of that building. But the resistance to that demolition of that historic building was stopped by the people of Battle Creek who took an interest in that matter. The building was mothballed, and it is now something else than what it was, but it's still a viable source because you didn't destroy it. One of the reasons why it had to be destroyed and left to deteriorate was somewhere along the line, maybe an aquatic amusement park would be put in its place, run by Serial City Development Corporation, an arm of the government of Battle Creek, and with the same process and procedures of the government of Battle Creek, run the system into the ground. A person once told me just recently how wonderful it was you could spend $12 there and stay all day. I said, did you take into consideration all the money that the citizens of Battle Creek had to pay for the maintenance of that building and that operation that you don't look at? And it wasn't very affordable for low-income people. I think Kellogg's has changed a little bit. The procedure and his policies compared to what the government operations is. If it was sustainable, what could I say against it? But when you're spending thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain something that has been failed, have you ever taken a look at the economics of it? I doubt it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any other public comments tonight? Seeing none, any commission comments?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell and Commissioner Ballard.
I would like to talk about Mr. Kenefic's remarks about the pools. I would like to say I really personally thank W.K. Kellogg and his gift to the city. This city at one time had all the schools had pools in them donated by a gift from him. And they were very useful to the community. And it is a shame that they've been dilapidated through all these years. I would really advocate that anyone that wants to swim should have the opportunity to swim and take it up because it's a nice exercise. But again, I was not very wealthy back when I was younger. My dad, instead of watching Saturday morning cartoons, took me and my brother down to the youth building to learn to swim. Back then I didn't really like it because all my friends stayed home and watched cartoons, and they said, what'd you do today? I went swimming. I kind of took it for granted. That's a lot of stuff that's happened around here with the pools. They've been taken for granted. But the other thing is there is a lot of maintenance with the pools as we've gone through time. Sometimes when they're in an enclosure like they were built, a lot of people didn't know the technology back then. A lot of health reasons. There used to be a thing called lifeguard lung, which would mask itself as some type of disease, but it was pneumonia from how not taking care of the pools that were inside in the air. The technology has changed now, but back then those pools did have to go. The chlorine was so high that it was melting the walls, and it's just unfortunate that those type of buildings and designs have become obsolete. So yes, it's sad that we've had the downfall, but I am an advocate of trying to find a way to get people to go out and swim. Why are we not using other swimming pools in the schools to fundraise? There's other ideas out there to talk about the pools. So just wanted to let you know again, I thank that somebody made a gift to the city of Battle Creek to allow this young man to learn to swim. And I've also given back and taught people for 6 years, other people, to learn to swim at the Kellogg Community College pool, which is unfortunate because same thing there. The chlorine and the chemicals that we use to keep everything clean had demolished the walls to the point where they were just dust. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments? Commissioner Ballard.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got three things I just wanted to kind of voice some concerns that the constituents are talking about, particularly to the police department, and the motorcycle noise, and the screeching, and the loud radio playing, which is, if I did that at my house, you'd come over and arrest me, I'm sure, or give me some type of a citation for the noise levels. And this seems to be out of control. And I know you don't necessarily chase motorcycles for reasons of don't want somebody to die or something. I understand that. But it seems like that we could be getting license plates for these, and you could be going to their houses and telling them that they're on camera or something, whatever it's going to take. But something needs to be done about the noise of motorcycles in this city. It's not just in Urbandale. I've read it on multiple sites at Lakeview and Penfield, toward Penfield, that area. It's just out of control. And I would ask your support in trying to fix this problem. I've got a person on Bedford that is just at the end of David's Road there at Taylor, sits in his backyard having a conversation with his wife. He can't even hear what she's saying. And I live 6 blocks from Bedford Road, and I can hear it. It's just ridiculous, and I just want to make that point. A second one is the speeders in this town. I don't know what our situation is with pulling over speeders, but I had one come up behind me so fast that I thought for sure he was going to back into me, and he pulls around me. I happened to be at a stoplight, and I made some comment in a positive way about the speed limit and was told to mind my own business. Well, I think it is my business when somebody is endangering my life the way these speeders are going, particularly on Michigan Avenue and Bedford Avenue, or Bedford Road. Those are the two that seem to be needing more patrols in watching that. And the third thing is, maybe they can't see the speed limit signs because the trees are blocking multiple signs throughout this city as well as throughout this state. The trees need to be trimmed so that people can see signs. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for all 3 points. Any other commission comments at this time? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.